My name is Sandrine Deumier. I am a digital artist. I come from south of France. So I began my artistic practice by working on projects combining poetic text and video in collaboration with composers. Then I gradually moved towards the development of digital animation in virtual reality devices, immersive content such as pull-down projects and interactive fiction. To create my work, I usually use two softwares, the Unity game engine and the 3D creation software, Blender. My work is usually exhibited in digital art festival or video art event. For some years now, I try to develop speculative fictions focused on ecological concern. My main question is how to imagine forms of future humanities through interspecies consciousness. Using exclusively digital techniques, I seek to artistically generate emotional states focused on empathy, identification with others, or identification with form other than the self, such as non-human states or becoming non-human. I think the alteration or modification of our state of humanity in a fictional way could make possible the process of identification with related forms of identities. Disowning one's own identity in order to be ready to be appropriated by other forms of life. Be permeable, subject to modification, become aware of the world as a living entity crossed and inhabited by networks of relationships, by being oneself, inhabited by other forms of consciousness and by other forms of perceiving and feeling. Understand to be alive is to be together and learn how to make a world with the living. So with this in mind, I created during my artistic residency here in Chicago a short digital animation focuses on the permeability between human and non-humans. The title of the video is On the Edge of the Wild. This is a short visual series about our relationship with the wild world in contemporary societies, between mythology and reality, fiction and denial. This work attempts to imagine the adaptation of wild species to human environmental modifications in an increasingly artificial future world. The question of mutant identities is a central issue. In my artistic practice, I have always been interested in the idea of change, adaptability and mutation. In this new work, I try to focus on the representation of fluid identities, identities in transition between several species. Actually, all I've been trying to do for years, I think, is to trying to imagine new human entities capable of adapting to the natural world. For example, in the digital animation, from the place where the light goes out, presented in the exhibition at the Carioli Palace with the work created during the residency, I try to imagine new forms of human perception oriented towards hyperconnectivity to the natural world. The story is a long journey through a landscape neither natural nor artificial, in which the material of the landscape is a constitutive element of a new human existence. Most of my projects are creating during artist residencies. This allows me to spend all my time creating, and I think I also need to be on the move and constantly changing environments to be creative. During this residency here in the Hungarian countryside, I was lucky enough to be in the company of artist Kristina Laine, with whom I share a passion for long walks in the forest and an interest in spirituality linked to the natural world. So in general, I prefer residencies that I share with other artists because it's often allows us to share technique or ideas during the creative process, and that's always very interesting. And I think that's what's happened here. We spend a lot of time exploring the forest, following paths without knowing our final destination, getting a bit lost, discovering unusual places. So we spent some time listening to the forest, and I think it left its marks on our respective animation projects. I also think that our two projects resonate with each other, and perhaps presenting them together gives the public the keys to understanding them. I think there are a multitude of keys in the interpretation of artwork, and this is maybe the most interesting aspect of artistic creation, in my case. That what interests me most is the multiplicity of interpretation and the fact that no interpretation is more certain than another.
Hello, I'm Kristina Laine, and I am an artist, and I come from Lithuania, but I live in Finland. Yes. As an artist, I work in animation, experimental cinema, and media art. You could say I like to. I am a multidisciplinary artist, and I explore with I explore different techniques and my and ideas, and I want to somehow to combine it. Sometimes they cross into together. My work revolves around narrative visual imagery with a particular interest in symbolism, which I convey to audiences through time-based art, VR experience and tangible artifacts. The process of making art, thinking with my hands while creating art, and experimenting with different materials are essential components in my artistic practice and artistic approach. Nature often serves as a major inspiration for my artistic observations, leading to a heightened attention and the discovery of unconscious messages that later manifest in my art. And additionally, I enjoy sharing my knowledge through community projects and performances and workshops. I think in my animation art, I touch very various subjects, you know, and for example, the last work I did is actually experimental documentary that is where I tell about my memories, and this work also approaches memories, and it is a narrative. I explore the perception and self and the relation with this, and the border, maybe the line of the self and in the environment, and what is the, you know, the border, and which is like how it is stretched. Can it be like, what is the limit of the self? So that's what maybe I try to do in many artistic, like in my art, basically. And of course it goes through narratives. Then I tell about some story, or I just try, or then I concentrate on just on the visual narrative, or or maybe I just do the artifact, something like, for example, a mask or a light installation or sculpture that can portray this emotion that are maybe or feeling that are not that easily tangible and clear. I just want to grasp them somehow in my art. The work that I did in the art colony, it approaches maybe self in a way, in the change, like it's at a constant change. We change, and our perception changes, and the thing that we are changed too. I also seek the inspiration from this surrounding, what are like from this nature, and also that maybe you know, when you are in this environment, you can see the change and the cycle of life and death, and all this, you know. Now it's springtime, so everything is growing, and then you see old leaves, and you know, I found some bones here, and like, you know, some, but it is like natural process in order to live life and death, and that's what I explored in this animation, and I tried to convey it visually. My drawings, you know, they are like a flow. I actually approached the same artistic technique. It's like a process for me, and I make them. You know, it's something that comes to life, and it is very temporary. It's not. That's why I also burned I used fire for this, like as a tool for this artistic expression, and that they come to life and they just disappear. I want them that this ephemeral, you know, like just a moment, fleeting, something fleeting and short-lived. I think this environment is very inspiring. I found it, and the springtime was very inspiring too. In this art colony, the most inspiring thing here was nature, and especially trees. They are amazing. The bonsai oaks that grow in the mountains. They are like snakes or dragons, and I really enjoyed the spring here. I got inspired a lot with these surroundings, with this in this residency. That's why actually lots of these elements are nature, and you know, even the thing that this one. Wait a moment. This one, you know, that the blood is dripping here. You see? I will show you. It is because apparently you have this bush here, near where the oaks are. You have the bush with the thorns, lots of thorns, and actually I hurt my hand with it. So, so it's like, yeah, and I noticed that lots of like thorny bushes, and when you try to enter, so it kind of also was inspired a lot by this, and of course, maybe you can see the faces, and faces as my work subject. I work a lot with faces, actually, and then transform them in different kind of states and shapes, and yes. Art residency was a good experience, positive experience, definitely. It is something what I needed to do for a long time, and this possibility came. I also could focus on my work better than, for example, at home, because there are so many distractions, and here I could focus and have this like very balanced way of doing things. Artistic practice, then this nature, walking, hiking in nature, climbing mountains, exploring plants and animals. Yes. Overall, I think it was very nice, and I think I managed to balance my work because I did 4 drawings and also this animation. Because sometimes when I do only on computer, it feels a bit uncomfortable. So that I do simultaneously in the same time, like drawings. It's very good way to balance and to feel better. For somehow I experimented with drawings. I experimented with ink, with fire on paper, and what else? And with color. Actually, I put colors. I'm usually like monochromatic person, but here I put colors in both of them, in animation and in my drawings. And I think I'm very happy with the result.